Hey guys, welcome back to Zeke's Oboe. In today's video, I'm going to be discussing how I got into Northwestern, a competitive Ivy League school, and I'm going to tell you guys how you can do it and what it takes to get that. Before I jump into the video, if you guys have any questions or want to know what the process is like to apply to grad schools, please leave that in the comments down below, and I'll consider doing a video on that to help you guys. So let's jump right into the video. So when I was applying for grad schools, I always wanted to go to Northwestern, and it definitely was up there on my radar and my #1 choice, but I wasn't sure if I was going to get in or not. So in order to help me get prepared, I had to make sure I spent as much time as I could prepping for this audition. And if you look at on the audition requirements, there was at least an hour's worth of material I had to learn just for this school, and each school had different requirements, so I was learning different pieces for different schools, and some of these schools didn't have any overlap, so I was learning twice the amount of material that I needed to for Northwestern. But anyways, the biggest advice I could give you for applying for Northwestern is to prep and practice as much as you can, and that's what I often did. And I even skipped some classes to spend more time practicing. I didn't skip all my classes entirely. I just missed the week leading up to the audition process to get ready for this audition, because I knew I could always make up the work later, but I couldn't make up my time practicing later. So that's how I chose to use my time to prep for this audition. And I'm not advising you to do the same. I'm saying this is what it took me to get into Northwestern. You might be able to do both your classes and practice as much as you want, but it does take sacrifice on both parts, and either your grade's going to suffer or your audition's going to suffer. And if you're trying to get into a school, I would have your grade suffer over your audition, because you can't redo your audition. So obviously you're going to have to practice a lot to get in. Also, if you're an oboist, you're going to have to spend a decent amount of time making reads, especially the week leading up to your audition. You should have at least 3 reads ready for your audition. You don't know what your read's going to be like. You're just like hoping by the time you go there, the read will settle and it will be good, especially for the atmosphere. But then you go to another place in a different environment and only one of your reads works. And that's why a lot of the time you're going to be spending time working on your reads, and then hopefully when you get to your audition, you're just subtly revising your read and adjusting it to make sure it's better. Alright, so now I'm going to talk a little bit about how the audition was. If you've ever done auditions before, they're kind of all the same in my opinion. You go in, you say your name. If it's not a blind audition, you talk to them for like a couple minutes, if not seconds, and then you warm up and play, or you just play for them. So this one was pretty standard compared to what I've had in the past, and even undergrad auditions. The only difference was this one was a little more intense because it's obviously a grad school audition, so they expect more from you. So when I was auditioning, they told me I could warm up, and whenever you warm up, you always have to make sure you produce your best sound, because this is the first thing they hear. So that was the first thing I was doing when I was getting ready for this audition and about to perform for them, was I was making sure that every sound and tone that I produced was the best that I could do, even in my warm-up. And so my audition was also very short. So I don't know about other auditions, but for oboes, every audition I had at the grad school level was like no more than 10 minutes. It's either you can play or you can't play. They know by now and what they're looking for, especially at this level. So if you can't wow them in the first couple minutes, then chances are you're not going to get in. And so the longer you go, it doesn't really signify if it's better or not. It just means they're looking for something that they haven't heard already. The other thing that was interesting about this audition that was different from some of my other ones is that this was kind of in an enclosed space, very intimate. It was in my professor's office, so that meant I was like 5 feet away from him. So those auditions are also very intimidating and scary, because you don't feel like you have room to like express yourself, or you feel like they're judging every single thing you're doing. They can see every mistake you make. You can even hear when they take a breath when you're supposed to breathe, and that can kind of psych you out. It's really not that bad. They were very comforting, try to make sure there was like not much pressure for me, and they just wanted me to do my best. So I didn't feel like it was as stressful as some other auditions could have been. And anytime you're in an audition and they tell you, all right, play this, always give yourself a few seconds just so you can kind of like recollect yourself in your mind before you begin and play what they ask. Otherwise, if you're like, okay, I gotta play this right now, chances are you're gonna like either rush it or play a few wrong notes in the beginning because you're nervous about doing what they asked. So if you can just steady your mind and then dive into it when you're ready, that'll make you more confident, and feel secure with what you're doing. And then they also hear that when you're playing. So now I'm going to talk specifically about how my audition went. Like I said before, there's a bunch of material and repertoire I had to learn for Northwestern. And to be honest, I wasn't able to get down everything. There were just like 3 pieces that I was not as comfortable with, but everything else I had fine. I was like, hopefully he won't ask me one of those. And of course, it was the last thing he asked me too. It was like, all right, I want you to play the 6 metamorphosis in Oboe. As most of you know, it's not as difficult as some of the others, but I kind of biffed it up and I still got in. So it just proves that you don't need to necessarily have everything mastered at a grad school level. Ideally you do, but clearly they can tell if you're a good player or not. So even if you do make mistakes, there's room for grace. And as long as you're confident on, I would say, like 95% of your stuff, you can have room for error and still get in. Because I still had a good audition. I was surprised because I was like, okay, I might not get in because of this one piece, and I wish I would have known it better. And then right after that, they did sight reading, and I went too fast and bombed that, but I got in. So it just proves that there's room for error because no one's perfect. As long as you are confident with what you know and you really prove that you are a good player, they can overlook those things. And that's what they saw in me. Alright, so after the audition, I had to wait a month, and this is pretty standard for all grad school auditions. They don't release your audition results until the middle of March, and then they only give you like 2 to 3 weeks to decide where you want to go. So it's pretty stressful because you basically need to have an idea of where you want to go before you get the results. One of the things that helped me in this process was I also took a private lesson with one of the professors at Northwestern, and this kind of gave me reassurance, and he kind of explained how their program is and like what kind of opportunities they have at the school for oboe, and that also just assured me that this was a good fit for me. So I would advise, take a lesson if you can. Thankfully I lived in the area, so it wasn't too far for me to go and get a lesson with him. But I know if you're pretty far or you live in another state or another country, this might not be realistic, but you could always try maybe a Zoom lesson, and that could possibly work. Hopefully you guys can take something out of this. I know this is just a personal story of how I got into this school, and I know each and every person will have their own different story. And if you guys want any more tips or suggestions on audition material, grad schools, please leave that in the comments down below. If you guys like what you're seeing and you want more oboe related content or even music general related content, please subscribe if you're not subscribed yet. And I'm going to be posting more frequently now that it's summer, so stay tuned, guys. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and let me know what was your favorite part and leave it in the comments down below. Alright, see you guys.